Within this lesson, I want to continue with our setup and then start writing some code so we get some output here. So we can begin to format our JSON files, pull them into JavaScript using JavaScript code. So what I've got open over here is DevTools, and I'm just going to add my folder that I'm using for these source files into my DevTools console because I do use DevTools quite a bit. So I like to just have that set up. So the way to do that is simply allow it, and now we've got all of the same source files that I have. If I go over to brackets, I've got all of that same folder information within DevTools. And I can really easily go through the files, trying to make this a little bit more readable here. So I can go through and I can see all of my source code, and this is that JSON file again. So I don't necessarily need to flip back into my editor in order to see the content of those files. So I've got my JS, my HTML, and my CSS file. So the first thing that I wanted to do is actually get some output happening here within our JavaScript. So hooking up JavaScript in order to actually output some content into HTML. So I've got my HTML file here. I've got a div with an ID output. So I'm going to be actually updating that and outputting content into there. So the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to set up a variable, and I'm going to just set up a variable called output. And I'm going to equal that. So I'm going to do document accessing the DOM get element by ID and accessing that output element in my HTML. So placing it within the object output, and this is going to give me access to this particular element in HTML. And so if I actually want to output some content into there, I can do output inner HTML and update HTML. So I just want to hook this up at first so that I have access to the HTML code. So now when I refresh it, we've got that new updated code in there. And this is the beginning part of where I want to output my content from the JSON file. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at how we can make our AJAX call to a JSON file in order to pull through data. And this is going to be the beginning setup of how we're going to be able to access content coming from PHP. The PHP file is going to output JSON formatted data, and then we're going to be using AJAX to pull that formatted data into our JavaScript and then output it within our HTML. So that's what's coming up in the next lessons.